What is good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. Thanks for joining. It's been a minute. No strikes or anything. A lot of times when people go down, it's usually that week for a strike. Luckily, I did not get any strikes on the channel. I just wasn't able to upload, but it feels good to be able to do one right now. Exciting news. I will be joining Jen Perlman on her great podcast. This is somebody who I hate labeling people, but I consider her on the populist left. I'll be joining her for what she's calling a crossover live stream, which I love. And I'll be on there with Nabila Islam, who is a candidate in the Georgia State Senate. She's a Democrat. She's an identitarian. And I don't see the world the same way, but this is a respectful podcast where they have really good discussion with people on all sides of the spectrum. That's how we're going to get out of this thing. We're not going to get out of this thing, at least peacefully, this thing that we're in this world right now without respectful conversation. So I look forward to that. 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Jen's channel. I'll put a link below. Man, I've been sitting out, but I've been looking at the headlines. Crazy. I mean, the headlines just keep getting crazier. Occupy Democrats. Breaking news. This is from a while back. This is the whole Djokovic stuff. And if you don't know, I'm a big tennis fan. I played tennis all throughout middle school and high school. I learned on a wooden racket. I was never a great tennis player, but I loved the sport, loved watching it. Andre Agassi was one of my favorite players. And one of my most favorite modern players is Novak Djokovic. He reminds me of Andre Agassi, just better. But breaking news, Australia announces that the anti-V tennis player Novak Djokovic will be banned from entry to the country for 3 years, which means he will miss the next 3 Australian Open tournaments as well. All caps, retweet to thank Australia for setting Novak Djokovic straight. The headlines are crazy nowadays, and I'm going to turn this from the Occupy Democrat Twitter account celebrating Novak Djokovic being banned for 3 years, meaning that that's what they would want to have happen here, right? Anyone who's anti-V here, they would want to ban them from the country, is the obvious connection to make. But I want to take this up a notch and show people how this is an attack on Western culture. I said a while back, at some point, we're going to need to find some tea to throw into a harbor. And I've been calling it, before that, I've been calling this a civil, like a civil situation, like almost like 1860. But this is more revolutionary, I think. And it's because this isn't, I think our country's been infiltrated. It's not the same as we have a country and then there's 2 different philosophical beliefs within it, like, for example, slavery or not slavery. To me, it is there is that philosophical difference, but to me, I think it's from an infiltration from other entities, enemies to the country. That's not what we had in 1860. 1860, it was just literally, you think of a house and people in the house disagreed. What I think is happening now is there are people outside the house who have gotten into the house and saying, hey, I want to change the house. So it might be a difference that's not worth distinguishing, but to me, we are in a revolutionary period, a second revolutionary period. Michigan Democrats tell parents they are not clients of public schools, that children should be taught what society needs them to know, and that taxpayers should stay out of education. And this was captured in this message here, and I'll read the second paragraph because that's where it really gets down to it. The Michigan Democratic Party sent this out. They said the purpose of, and it is now deleted, but they did send this out. The purpose of a public education in public schools is not to teach kids only what parents want them to be taught. Bold. It is to teach them what society needs them to know. The client of the public school is not the parent, but the entire community, the public. And there is some truth to that. But it's really the mindset of collectivism versus individualism. And that is a Western versus Eastern philosophy right now that is infiltrating our country. So it's much bigger than education. It's much bigger than a jab. It's much bigger than a mask. How the East and West think in profoundly different ways. This is historically. But we're seeing the ideologies of the East infiltrating the US. So you see what I'm saying? It is a philosophical battle, but with outside influence. These Eastern ideas did not originate from Western culture, factually. Some of the most notable differences revolved around the concepts of individualism and collectivism, whether you consider yourself to be independent and self-contained or entwined and interconnected with the other people around you, valuing the group over the individual. Generally speaking, there are many exceptions. People in the West tend to be more individualist, and people from Asian countries like India, Japan, or China tend to be more collectivist. And what we're seeing is, I don't know how it's happening. I'm not even alleging that. But I am saying for a fact, this is an Eastern philosophy that is infiltrated America. I don't know how it's happened. I'm not even going to talk about that in this video. But that's what's happening. A philosophy that goes against our values is infiltrating our country. So it's bigger. So when you go back to the Michigan Democrats, the public school, so the client of the public school is not the parent. Well, they actually are saying the parent is a client of the public school, but only as a member of the entire community. That's what they're saying. So you are a client as a parent, as a member of the entire community. This is how you create groupthink. This is how you fall victim to a cult. Like if you look at historic cults in our time, they're not individualists. You can't be an individualist and be a part of a cult. You are a part of a collective group, and that means you can be led like lemmings, sheep, by a ruler or rulers. Individualists can't be ruled by a king or elitist figures. Dr. Fauci in November said there is a misplaced perception about people's individual right to make a decision that supersedes the societal safety. That is the definition of collectivism. So we have a scientist who is espousing Eastern philosophy. How does that happen? Where, at what point did we make that turn? That is not science. That statement he's making right there has nothing to do with science. There's no statistics. There's no science. That is Eastern philosophy.
We had a collaboration with some Chinese scientists.
So at that moment, Dr. Fauci is being a philosopher. So when you look at things that don't make sense, so for example, Temple is requiring online students to submit proof of a V, or it will affect your standing as a Temple student. These are students who are all virtual. How does this make sense is what Libs of TikTok says. Well, it doesn't make sense if you're not looking through it through the lens of philosophy. This is not through the lens of science. This is the lens of, in Temple, everybody who's in class is following the group collective identity. So whether you're in person or not is irrelevant. You must follow the group identity and what they would say, for the benefit of the group. So this is what we have to instill on our children at home. If you believe in Western culture, that's what you need to instill in them at home. This has no business as far as school goes. Schools should not be instilling, in my opinion, Western or Eastern philosophy. It should be teaching what these things are and leave it up to the parents and others to decide on the opinions of them. There should be no opinion taught as fact in school. I don't care if it's religion. I don't care if it's Christianity. I don't care if it's Black Lives Matter or critical theory, postmodernism. None of it should be taught as fact. Here, collectivism shows its ugly head again. Column, California should abolish parenthood in the name of equity. If California is ever going to achieve true equity, the state must require parents to give away their children. I can't tell hyperbole from satire from reality anymore. So I'm taking this as tongue-in-cheek, but with a hint of truth to it. That they say the state must require parents to give away their children to the community. Because otherwise, you'll never achieve true equity, because some parents might leave their children with money, or lead them with education. We need to make sure that every student, even if it's a poor education, every student gets the same level. And that's a true collective mindset. Let me know what you think. I think that's where the bigger picture ideology is. And this leads us to this battle of collectivism. And I'm not going to name all the dictators because they get funny with demonetizing and stuff with that. But in history, there's never been a dictator that's been able to dictate without collectivism. You can't preach individualism and be a dictator. And that always leads down the road of conflict. Our Western society, and this is what we have to fight for peacefully with ideas, with the battle of ideas, like when I go on with generational change and I talk about it, I'm going to talk about, I don't care about a Republican, I don't give a damn about a Democrat. Those labels mean absolutely nothing. In the West, we believe that society is strong when the individual is strong through liberty. And the only collectivism that we believe in is through the Constitution. That is the document of the collective beliefs that we agree in. Any collective beliefs beyond that are irrelevant. We believe we are strong as a country, as a society, when the individual is strong. And this ideology of mandates, of you must have groupthink. And I'll end with this. I started this channel right after the George Floyd craziness. The world got crazy, snapped a finger right when George Floyd unfortunately died. And I could feel a pressure to jump aboard, to agree with this movement. And I looked at it and I said, I don't agree with it. This is absolutely against everything that I grew up with and believe in our country, to even force people through shame, ridicule, to join a movement that is against our country ideals. That's what woke me up. And that's the whole point of this channel. This is why I have gravitated to the Mises Caucus with Dave Smith, Michael Malice, Tom Woods, and the like, because Mises believed in individualism and the dangers of collectivism. And I want to hear from you. What do you think about this battle? There's always going to be a balance. Let me know what you think. Where do you come out on this? Do you feel like there is a time where you have to say collectivism should rule and Constitution gets thrown aside? Or do you say, if you want to change the collective definition of our country, then you've got to change it through the Constitution with a plurality, or through the ratification process, which is not easy and was designed to be hard on purpose. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot for listening. Hopefully, I'll see you on Wednesday. Take care.